आया ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भागवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके। Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janamadasya Yato Anvayat Itaratascha Vigyasarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yat Suraya Tejo Vari Mridang Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha धामना सेना सदा निरस्तकुहुकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्म प्रोजिता कैतवतरा परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमतरवस्तु शिवदं तापत्रायणमूलनं श्रीमद्भगवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परेरीश्वरः हृद्यवरुध्य अत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषुभिः तत्क्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबता भगवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, Chapter 8, the character of Bharat Maharaj, text number 15. Please repeat. Anyada Vrisham Udavekana Nashta Dravina Eva Kripanaha Sakarunam Atitarshena Harina Kunaka Viraha Vivala Hridaya Santapa Tam Evanusochan Kila Kashmalam Mahad Abhirambita Iti Ovacha Anyada Vrisham Uta Vigana Mana Nashta Dravina Iva Kripanaha Sakarunam Atitarshena Harina Kunaka Viraha Vivala Hridaya Santapa Tam Evanusochan Kila Kashmalam Mahad Abhirambita Hiti Hovacha. Please repeat. Anyada sometimes not seeing the calf, prisham, very much, udvigna manaha, his mind full of anxiety, nashta dravina, who has lost his riches, eva, like, kripanaha, a miserly man, sakarunam, piteously, ati tarshena, with great anxiety, harina kunaka, from the calf of the deer, viraha, by separation, vivala, agitated, hridaya, in mind or heart, santapa, whose affliction, tam, that calf, eva, only, anusochan, continuously thinking of, kila, certainly, kashmalam, illusion, mahat, very great, abhirambita, obtained, iti, thus, ha, certainly, uvacha, said. Translation. If Bharat Maharaj sometimes could not see the deer, his mind would be very agitated. He would become like a miser, who having obtained some riches, had lost them, and had them become very unhappy. When the deer was gone, he would be filled with anxiety and would lament due to separation. Thus he would become illusioned and speak as follows. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. If a poor man loses some money or gold, he at once becomes very agitated. Similarly, the mind of Maharaj Bharat would become agitated when he did not see the deer. This is an example of how our attachment can be transferred. If our attachment is transferred to the Lord's service, we progress. Srila Rupa Goswami prayed to the Lord that he would be as naturally attracted to the Lord's service as young men and young women are naturally attracted to each other. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited such attachment to the Lord when he jumped into the ocean or cried at night in separation. However, if our attachment is diverted to material things instead of to the Lord, we will fall down from the spiritual platform. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakashur Unamilitam Yena Tasamai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Anyada brisham udavigna mana nashta dravina iva kripana sakarunam atitarshena harina kunaka viraha vivala hridaya santapa tamevanusochana kila kashmalam mahat abhirambita hiti ovacha. If Bharat Maharaj sometimes could not see the deer, his mind would be very agitated. He would become like a miser who, having obtained some riches, had lost them and had then become very unhappy. When the deer was gone, he would be filled with anxiety and would lament due to separation. Thus he would become illusioned and speak as follows. The word towards the end is kashmalam. The word for word is given as illusion. Srila Prabhupada had this wonderful habit of giving the word meaning that was appropriate to the entire context. The word kashmalam actually means dirt. But we're not speaking of dirt that is resting on a table on the floor. We're speaking of dirt that has taken over someone's consciousness. What is the dirt that affects consciousness? And amongst all the things is specifically illusion. Illusion. Here we see a devotee who is overcome by illusion, who is overcome by a dirt over his consciousness whilst he was practicing his devotional service, his sadhana bhakti. So it's a very appropriate for those of us who have undertaken the path of practicing Krishna consciousness by rules and regulations. Even those of us who have undertaken Krishna consciousness by practice with some higher taste also. This is what has happened to a devotee who had a higher taste. So it seems a little contradictory. How can you fall into illusion if you have a higher taste? Does that question arise? If somebody has a higher taste, how and why would somebody fall into illusion? And here, in the Bhagavatam has a wonderful standard that it always depicts the most extreme example, an example that you will not find normally. But so it teaches us, if it happens in an extreme situation, what to speak of a lesser situation. For example, a Jamil chanted the holy name of Lord Narayan, and he was very sinful, and he got delivered. What to speak of somebody who is not as sinful? You see. So the most extreme example is given. Very bad behavior. So bad that even the Yamadutas thought this was not a case for any kind of doubt. Shri Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radha Shyam Sundar ki jai. So here we find a devotee who has reached what level of devotional service? Bhava Bhakti. There are 8 stages of bhakti. Adau Shraddha, Tatha Sadhu Sangha, Tha Bhajana Kriya, Tato Nartha Nivritti Syat, Tato Nishtha Ruchis Tatha, Tato Bhavas. So, the 7th stage of bhakti he had reached, the 7th stage. And he became Kashmalam, he became illusioned. So if it can happen at the 7th stage, what to speak of any other lower stage? Illusion, a person can be overcome by illusion. And the illusion in Bharat Maharaj's case is very unusual. Again, very extreme. Here is a person who actually, if there was anybody who would not fall into illusion, was Bharat Maharaj. Because he had already given up, not artificially, but completely, all attraction for all kinds of opulences and sense gratification possible in this material world. And so to speak, he impossibly fell for someone not even in the category of desirable things. An animal. An animal. He fell for an animal. Again, there are parallels in our life. Of course, sometimes it's very easy to laugh at another or to be dismissive. But there are people with overcome with affection and attachment for a dog, for a cat, for a little rat. They call them hamsters. For those who, they don't like to call them rats, although they are rats of a kind. So what does it mean? It means we can be an illusion over anything. It doesn't have to be very substantial. It doesn't have to be the greatest thing aspired for by everybody else. Our illusion might be a simple little thing, but it's nonetheless Kashmalam, an impediment on the path of the devotee who's trying to cultivate Krishna consciousness. If it can happen to Bharat Maharaj, what to speak of us? If it can happen even at the stage of bhava, what to speak of us who may be on a lower stage of bhakti? So these are a number of lessons that are pertinent, that are enshrined within this narration, this katha. And the amazing thing is, Shukadev Goswami depicts Bharat Maharaj's condition in a very thought-provoking manner. He depicts it, he illustrates it, he gives it full color and details. And because when somebody is overcome, he doesn't think, oh, it's just an animal. He thinks of it in very poetic terms, very affectionate terms. That's when you're overcome. This is material conditioning that mama maya duratyaya. It really does have power. It really does influence the living entity. The living entity is not just pretending to be in the clutches of Maya. He becomes completely, from head to toe, in every single respect, in his thoughts, in his feelings, in his actions, everything becomes affected by this illusion once it takes hold. So we're just on the eve of Bharat Maharaj going to give expression to his feelings in the coming verses. But here there's a nice description already. Before he speaks, there's a preface to his speech. So first of all, Udvigna Mana. His mind was very much agitated, very much in anxiety. He always thought helplessly. Whatever he was doing, his mind was on the deer. The deer had captured his mind so well that all of the thoughts were on the deer, but not only thoughts, they had developed to the point of causing him anxiety. Thinking, feeling. He had feelings. He had gone to the next stage. Feeling. Very intensely. You know, if you think about it for a second, if a devotee has this kind of state in his Krishna consciousness, where he's not only thinking of Krishna, but is thinking of Krishna so much that all kinds of anxiety develops. It's a wonderful state. Prabhupada said that this is an example of how our attachment can be transferred, can be either in the material sphere or for Krishna, or for the Lord's service, Prabhupada says. So Prabhupada is saying not just the Lord, but the Lord's service. If we can have anxiety, we're not only thinking of our service, but we're thinking of it so much, so well, that we're anxious. We're disturbed. Udvigna Mana. This Udvigna Mana in the Nectar of Devotion is described as one of the ecstasies of a devotee. You know, I'm reminded of the example given by Guru Das Prabhu, that he was sitting with Prabhupada in the car coming from Delhi to Vrindavan, and so he's speaking himself, and he's saying, it was a very momentous occasion. I'm in front of the pure devotee of the Lord, who is carrying out the mission of Lord Chaitanya, and anything deep might take place. And after a long time there was silence, and Prabhupada said one word, and he said, cement. So he thought, you know, this is the most profound thing. Prabhupada was very much anxious about the building of this Krishna Balaram temple, and his mind was on how to get cement. Because without cement, all the work was stopped. So this is the case of somebody, Udvigna Mana, the mind is disturbed thinking about the Lord's service. Bharat Maharaj, of course, material symptoms. Nashta Dravina. He became a kripana, a miser, who had just lost his dravina, all his wealth. A miser is very conscious of his money. He's focused on the money. The money is everything. Helplessly. I mean, I speak this, and it may be that you're in that condition, but it's not to criticize, but it's true. It's true when you're a miser, when all your thoughts are on your rupees and your paisas, how much, how little. And if you lose it, it's a preliminary stage of driving you mad. You know? So that was the other symptom. And then Sakarunam. Karunam, he was driven to such a state of thought on the deer that his condition had become pitiful. He didn't care if somebody noticed his condition. It's called pitiful, piteous, wretched. You're so overwhelmed, you don't care what others might say. So affected. Over a deer, you see. You have to remind yourself, this is all happening over a deer. But when you're in illusion, it's of no consequence what it is. Others might think. They may be very detached. There was one sannyasi in our movement. He's passed away now. He was fond of giving an example. I've only heard him give it, so I don't know where the source is. His name was Mahavishnu Goswami. He was Indian body. He would speak of a sage who went and alleviated the suffering of a family who had lost their young son. He died. So he gave them spiritual advice. They became calm. They went to go and see him one day to remember him in gratitude. And he was crying. Why are you crying, Sadhuji? My goat has died. Our son died. You consoled us. Your goat has died. He said, that was your son. This is my goat. So people are attached to their attachments. Even if it's not a son, you become affected. So anyway, Ati Tarshena, Tarshena is a root word, it comes from Trishna, thirst. He was physically affected. His body was affected by thoughts of the deer. Harina Kunaka Viraha, by separation from this Harina, this deer, Kunaka, this calf of a deer. And Vivala Hridaya, Santapa, his heart was agitated, his mind was agitated. And in this condition, he speaks. So, think about it. If in this condition of Krishna consciousness, of our service, we then chant Hare Krishna, can you imagine how intense that is? In that particular mood or condition of mind and the heart. But here's the thing, in the Nectar of Devotion, it explains that it is possible by practicing Krishna consciousness under the guidance of a pure devotee. It is possible to experience intense Krishna consciousness, intense, where your mind, where your body is affected by the thoughts of your devotional service. It's interesting, there's one example in the Nectar of Devotion that Daruka, everyone knows Daruka, he is the personal charioteer of Lord Krishna. But what may not be known is that he also performs personal service to the Lord when he's not on the chariot. So on one occasion he was fanning with a peacock feather, the Lord, It's hot, so he's fanning, cooling him. So while he's fanning him, he started to experience ecstatic symptoms. And one of those symptoms was he started to cry. Tears flowed from his eyes. And then, because he was fanning and he couldn't see properly, he cursed his ecstasy because he could not do his service properly. Could not see the Lord. So it's possible to have very deep experience of Krishna consciousness. Now the question is, how can somebody who had a higher taste become illusion? That was the beginning of the class. Well, it is possible. Otherwise, this example would not have been told to us by Shukadev Goswami. We have to be, what is that in Hindi? Savdhan. We have to be careful. At no point can you relax and think, I am safe. Nothing can touch me. That's dangerous. Bharat Maharaj didn't think that, but we have to understand that he was on such a high platform of Krishna consciousness, and yet he fell into illusion over a deer. Over a deer. So if we have the habit of being attracted to little things, having our own little pet favorite things, on the internet you have a thing, favorites. You have your own list of favorites, websites, favorite things. Any of these favorite things can trap us. Other than Krishna and Krishna's pure devotional service, everything else can trap us. However insignificant and even, let's use the word benign, it may be. Because one usually thinks, this is not one of the 4 sinful activities, It's not meat eating, it's not gambling, it's not intoxication, not illicit sex. So we think we can allow certain attachments. But the fact is, any attachment, however harmless it may seem, has the power to bind you. Dhyayato Vishyan Pumsa Sangasteshu Pajayate. That meditation, that repeated contemplation will result in attachment. And the attachment will lead to further development. So one has to catch himself before there is deep attachment. Before. Otherwise, it's too late. So, 1 or 2 of the classes previously were given that one of the safeguards against becoming attached is to be in the association of devotees. That was mentioned a number of times. And that is correct. Because hopefully we have that kind of association which leaves the door open for others to caution us. We should have such a relationship that doesn't forbid somebody from making a suggestion to us. Now, of course, sometimes this is abused because those who have a lot of ahankar, false ego, they want to tell everybody what to do. Lord Chaitanya was afraid of Jagadanand Pandit because he tended to be very critical of him, of others. But Jagadanand Pandit was nonetheless a pure devotee. But in the case of Ramachandra Puri, the god brother of Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master, it was very offensive. So we have to make sure we don't become Ramachandra Puri, but on our side we should have it that other devotees can caution me, can say something helpful. Otherwise we put ourselves in a difficult position, because now we will become attached and nobody there to stop us. And this attachment is quite serious. Again, because Bharat Maharaj was who he was, his fall down was just 2 more lives, Deer and Jad Bharat. But in our case, it may be little longer. Prabhupada one time described, little longer means eternally. It can be a very long time. Nitya Bada. It's interesting also, isn't it? Many people think once you've been a devotee, next life, human life is guaranteed. What happened to Bharat Maharaj? Human life wasn't guaranteed. He became a deer. So there are little nuances, little details. The point about human birth was made by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. That was, I'll explain. Since I brought it up, I should answer it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada would explain the point that Neha Bhikrama Nashasti. इसको ये दे देना, इसको ये. नेहा भीक्रम नाशस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पम पुन apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Because what happens is, whatever level of Krishna consciousness you attain, you will continue from that. And that presupposes you'll have another human birth. But the route it may take to get there may be a little longer. In the case of Bharat Maharaj, became a deer for 1 life. So I think I'll stop there. But the simple main point was to be very careful in your Krishna consciousness and don't fall down to any attachment. Are there any questions or comments?